All right. That was the longest non-guitar intro I've ever done. So, what exactly am I doing? So, I think I'm going to title this video "How to Get Out of a Guitar Rut." And thought about making this video for a while, and so started with the cello. The reason I started with the cello is, to me, one of the best ways to try to get out of a rut of something that you've been doing. Basically, it's like breathing when I play the guitar for me. Um, yeah, it's just like breathing, but sometimes breathing becomes customary. We all tend to breathe the same way. And although we want familiarity with the guitar, we don't always want to play the guitar the exact same way. So the different ways that I've used to try to get out of guitar ruts, and they don't always work, but you kind of vary the theme. I'm going to talk about ways I've used to get out of a rut and ways I've also used, but that might not be as beneficial. So the ways that I think are the most beneficial always relate to music. One, which I wasn't doing right here, was to go and listen to other forms of music, not just stuff that you would normally listen to. So if you're a jazz head, put some classical music on, put some rock music, put some folk, put some pop. Just listen, because at the end of the day, we pick up instruments because we like the way they sound. And music is just like breathing, it's a way of life. So that's the one thing. Don't ever forget to listen. Okay? Listen to new artists, listen to old things. Remember what started you playing on that instrument on that journey. So that's the number one thing. Listen. The second thing is go back to the reason why you started playing or picked up an instrument, whatever that was. For me, I picked up an instrument at a young age, but at the same time, the reasons I started playing an instrument is kind of like very simple. I liked the way it sounded, and it was happened to be the guitar. So I go back to the things that I kind of like the first point in terms of listening, artists that I listened to. And in this case, I think my first recollection of guitar music, believe it or not, this will tell you my age here, is watching Hee Haw and Roy Clark and country music. And I'm so far away from bluegrass and country music like that. But yeah, it was Flat Pickers. I just could not believe the speed that people were playing at. And I just liked the sound of it. It sounded good. And then gradually I heard, I think when I first heard a jazz guitar, I didn't even know it was a guitar being played. I just liked the sound of the thing and then subsequently found out about that. But go back to the reason why you picked up the instrument. So that's the second reason. One, listen to other forms of music. Two, kind of remember why you picked up the instrument, and if you can, go back to that to kind of rejuvenate the juice, to rejuvenate your juices and your interest in the instrument. A third mechanism that I've used is kind of like what I started here. Play something else. Pick it up, try it. You're never going to be as good as your main instrument, or very few people are. There are a couple of people like that. I'm never going to be that good on the cello or anything like that, but I like the sound of it. So I humor myself, play my scales, kind of learn something out of it. And it's helped me tremendously with the guitar, because obviously I'm not as agile on this thing as I am on a guitar. And so it forces me to listen. So practicing the scales, I just love the sound of it. And then I hear my mistakes, man. I hear the squeaks, and then I go watch Pablo Casals or Yo-Yo Ma, Johannes Moser and some of these contemporary, Alvin Gerhardt. These guys are fanatics. The bow technique, that whole pedagogy of that history of it. There's so much for me to learn that eventually I'll never master it, but as I'm learning techniques on that, I'm borrowing some of the techniques and I'm using that and incorporating that with my guitar playing. So for one thing, my listening abilities have gone up the roof. I can tell if stuff is short, flat, all this stuff, because this whole cello thing is all about intonation and identification of notes, because there are no frets. I've made the mistake so often calling it the fretboard instead of the fingerboard on this instrument that that's a no-no for I guess classical musicians. So yeah, so learning another instrument, and by that I don't necessarily mean the one that kind of although it's fine, I don't necessarily mean go buy a bass, because a lot of guitars can really improve their guitar by buying a bass. I play bass and I've played fretless and things like that, and that helps a lot. But just buy a recorder. Try something that's very difficult. Sometimes it's like lifting weights. You'll lift a lot more than your abilities, so when you have to just lift what you need to lift, it becomes easy. Playing a cello, to me, and probably the violin or any string instrument, is one of the most difficult things for you to master or to play, that it's almost makes it like childlike when I go back on the guitar after I've tried this thing and kind of haggle with that. So that's one thing. So again, so these are just the mechanisms, like when you're in a rut, like, listen to music, go back to the reason why you picked up the instrument, pick up another instrument that'll help you out with that. And then approach your guitar playing when you're on a guitar ride. The fourth way is do something different. By that I mean, you can learn a piece a certain way and you might have learned it finger style. Instead of playing in finger style, pick up a pick and play pick style. So things like that. If you learn to pick style, play finger style. That's the other thing too, which leads to the first thing. Play it a little bit differently. But the fifth way to get out of a rut is to learn a different style of guitar playing. Okay? So I'm not talking about picking up another instrument or playing with a pick or playing with verses like fingers or anything like that. I'm just saying, you're a jazz guy and you listen to jazz and you kind of want to be like Barney Kessel and Wes Montgomery and things like that. Man, just try something else. Go to Green Day and power chords. Van Halen. Just try. That's the beauty of the instrument. Try classical guitar. There's so many genres that if you pick up the genre without even pick up another instrument, it's like picking up another instrument. When I sit with a classical guitar and I play with my nails and I'm doing that, that's very different than bebop. It's very different than I plug the guitar in. So I apologize for this long video, but it's one of those things I want to get out. So now let's talk a little bit about what you don't want to do, but what everybody does, including myself. All right. The number one culprit and the worst way to try to get out of a guitar rut is to literally, when I say this, go out and buy another instrument. I've done it. I continue to do it. For whatever reason, we as guitar players think that the acquisition of a new instrument is going to make us a better musician or make us play differently. This is not to say that a new instrument doesn't make you play differently. Of course it does. But what I tend to find happens, and I can only speak for myself, is that my Tele, my arch top, my 335 or 535 Heritage, my H150 Heritage, that kind of stuff, my Les Paul type guitar, I'm always dialing him in or trying to dial him in like a jazz box. So basically, in a funny way, I'm using different guitars to try to get the same sound. So it's not really making me play as differently as I think and as I hope. I just like the way they look, and there's that hope that they will help you. So, but guitar acquisition syndrome is not the best way to get out of a guitar rut. Okay? It will only be temporary. Trust me, I go through it every other month, every other week, every other day, sometimes every other hour. All right? So, and the last and best way to get out of a guitar rut is what I always end these videos with, is to practice, but just practice something differently and approach it a little bit differently. But continue to practice and you will hone your craft and get better at it. All right then? Apologize for this long video, and let me go and practice some more on the cello because I need to get better at this thing. All right then. Have a great rest of your week. Bye now.